Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Down the Rabbit Hole podcast, where we have Marcus Cauchi here, founder of Last Laughs, and he's been with Sandler for about 16 years. And he helps early stage technology companies achieve profitable international hypergrowth. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Marcus Cauchi. I'm a fitness instructor, as you can tell. Essentially, what I do is I help tech scale-ups between the 10 to 50 million dollar mark stop making acts of self-sabotage and stupidity that are typically created by focusing on the wrong end of the problem. So they tend to recruit in volume, burn through salespeople. They tend to go on a land grab and chase revenue instead of profit. Founders tend to ask the stupid question, which is how can we get funding, instead of how can I build a really strong, sustainable, profitable business with strong fundamentals, lifetime customers, and engaged employees. And net result is they give away a lot of their power to investors who drive the wrong behaviors. And so I'm on a mission to help them avoid that. Only a handful of companies. I work with a very tight number of companies, no more than 8 to 12 a year. And I help them to grow at exponential rates whilst keeping the profits so that they can reinvest and actually have a life.
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want that? And so today's episode is called Selling the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The reason why is because Marcus here is absolutely an expert when it comes to seeing the worst of the worst, the best of the best, and everywhere in between.
I thought you were going to say I was the ugly.
Oh, no. You're beautiful. Of course. But so could you tell me, what are some of the common misconceptions, or I guess you could say myths, for lack of a better term, of sales, or what people believe is true, or what they believe is effective, or so on?
Okay, sales is not a numbers game. It's only a numbers game if you don't know how to market and sell. Sales is a subset of marketing. Anything that touches the customer is marketing, and sales is therefore part of marketing. Sales and marketing should be completely aligned, as should customer success, customer service, account management. And everything should be built around the customer, not around you and your ugly baby. Most salespeople are product sellers. And what they do is they try and provide a magic dust, a pill, and inevitably they end up being dragged down a conversation around price.
Right.
The better ones focus on being an authority figure. But again, they're offering a solution. And part of the problem with that is that they're seeking people who need help. But they tend to sound very quickly like everybody else, and they become commoditized and then rapidly descend into product selling again. And the problem is that no one wants to be sold. People like to buy, they hate to be sold. And no one buys your product. No one in the history of humanity has ever bought training or a CRM or a drill because they wanted that particular thing. There's always a reason, there's a gain that they're looking for, there's a better outcome. And the problem is that most sales organizations insist on talking about features and benefits, which is selfish, and no one cares. That's just like taking or talking to a stranger and showing them, a PowerPoint selection of photos of your ugly children, or you pissed as a fart in the swimming pool in I don't know, Bahamas.
Like, who the hell wants to see a picture of your cat? That's pretty much what it is. No one wants to see the pictures of your pets. They just think, it's selfish. You're right.
Yeah. Another big myth is that you have to hire 12 to get 2 that are any good in sales. Most managers think that their job is a supervisory role, and it's partly that. But the best managers understand they have 5 functions, and every management job description should have the following 5 lines. Hire the best people. Recruitment is your number 1 job as a manager. If you hire the best people, 95 to 98% of your management problems go out the window immediately.
Because they manage up.
Because they're managing up, and the manager spends their time failing on the second thing, which is getting the best out of them. What they end up doing is spending all of their time with the sparrow with broken wings, trying to fix the people they should never have hired, or they've inherited and they're too spineless to get rid of. So hire the best people, get the best out of them. The third thing is make sure they have the tools and resources they need to do their best work every day. And I'll come back to that in a minute. The fourth is to clear roadblocks, help clear roadblocks and protect them from acts of idiocy from your senior leadership, and to manage inclusively. So people within the team have a voice, feel heard, feel understood. The number one reason why people leave a sales role is they leave their boss. They don't leave the company, they don't leave the job, they leave their boss. And the number one reason for that is they don't feel appreciated or valued.
Right. How many people say, I hate my work? Nobody. Everybody says, I hate my boss. And that means you're miserable there. And usually the management is why you leave. I've had several cases throughout my life. The management is why I left.
Me too. And again, what we need to understand is the research on the S&P 500 between 2010 and 2016 indicates that the companies that had highly engaged employees got 430% higher profit per employee, 290% higher revenue per employee, 40% lower churn rate, 20% higher productivity, and their share price grew over three times faster than the other companies in the S&P 500. Grew by about 32.7% instead of 14%.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, the metrics don't lie. A happy employee is a good employee, and that doesn't just go across sales. That goes across everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feeling appreciated at work goes across everything, and that's one of the worst things. Often, when I am interviewing people, and I'm sure you do the same thing, I ask them a question: when was the last time you felt appreciated at your workplace?
Yeah, really
most people can't even answer it. They think for 5 minutes, 5 whole minutes of silence, and they go, "You know what? I don't really know." Or they go, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, which is terrible. But moving forward, so with all that said, how did you enter the sales industry? So a little bit of an origin, and how has your experience been in the sales industry? From what you've said, it's been pretty good. I could tell that much. But how did you get in there, and how did you become what you have?
Right. So I started selling back in 1986, 87, something like that. So when Moses was a kid. And I had a part-time job at university, and I was selling attachments at an MLM network marketing organization's weekly events. And I got a bit of a bug for it when I upsold someone from buying a 50 pence piece of tube to 136 pounds. And I thought that was fun. So I kind of got a taste for it then. Finished my degree in watching spaghetti hoops run across a page in a hungover haze. I did a degree in Middle Eastern Studies, and I got a degree but no education. And I then got into sales after straight out of uni. Got promoted from sales to sales management in about 3 weeks. Had no idea what I was doing. Absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I was good on the phone. And so they had me build the SDR team. And we were a precursor to like a talking pages. So like Yellow Pages, but on the telephone.
Right.
And we hit our annual target in 3 months. And then the CEO had a nervous breakdown and everything went to shit. So then I got a job at the Australian consulate. And there I discovered office politics, and the reason why I'm never going to be a civil servant, because the consul asked me to come up with ideas to save costs or raise revenue. So I came up with 18 the following day, and she implemented 17 of them. The next day I discovered office politics, because there had been people there 36 years who'd never come up with an idea.
Oh, you're stepping on a lot of toes, huh?
Oh, yeah. So I learned my lesson very quickly. And then a series of jobs in recruitment for 10 years. And really, I was an order taker. I wasn't a salesperson. And it was a struggle because I was doing what everyone else did. And by accident, I made the mistake once of screwing up a cold call. And I felt so embarrassed by how badly I'd done that I wrote an email This email had, was just coming in then, and my subject line was "The Fool on the Phone." And the guy forgave me and invited me in. And I'd worked out that if you worked out what it cost them to take 4 months to recruit somebody based on their target, my fees would be easy to justify. And he hired me to do 2 placements, and I made more money in that 1 month than I had in the previous year. And I was then struggled for a few more years. And then I came across Sandler, and I've never looked back. So 17 years in Sandler, and I've worked across 500 different market segments. My clients have grown sales by over $6.5 billion. Pounds, real money. And my clients will regularly grow 200, 300, 400, 1,200%. At the moment, I've got a bunch of clients who I was working with pre-lockdown, and not one of them is below 140%, and they're averaging between 140 and 220% of quota. And I've got some who are 3,000, 5,000% up on year, despite the lockdown. And I'm now transitioning into my new role. So I'm leaving Sandler and acting as a CRO for a number of companies in tech.
Right, they'd be lucky to have you. You kind of took a journey through your career that was almost the good, the bad, and the ugly in a sense. Where there
was a lot of ugly.
yeah, there always is. There always is before it's better, right? And that kind of
this is one other point that really needs to be made. Failure is your best teacher. I've never learned anything meaningful from my victories and successes, but from a good kicking, nothing like it. But you have to have the courage to take the lesson and not be brittle and break.
Right. And as a leader, you need to allow people to fail rather than saying, oh, no, I'll take care of it, baby them and everything. They're not learning anything. You need to let them fail.
You have to let them fail, but not let the business fail. And therein lies a huge difference, which means you have to keep your ego out of it. If you're doing ride-alongs with people, you have to let them run the meeting. They're the captain of the sail, your crew. And then you prep beforehand, and then you debrief after, and it's a coaching opportunity. And the one thing that I see so many managers mess up is they say, I don't have time for coaching. The reason you don't have time for coaching is you're not coaching. If you did, you'd have time.
Right. Couldn't agree more. And that kind of leads to the next is, if you could remove barriers and constraints with the processes that are intact in most places, what would it be?
Are you talking internally or selling to a customer?
It would be internally.
Right. I think that sales needs to have other departments involved in its sales meetings so that they can see the impact.
My God, I couldn't agree more. How much of a disconnect between engineering and sales there always is?
And marketing and finance.
Oh, it's blasphemous.
And professional services. It's stupid. The customer sees the company as a whole, but every time there's a handover, there's a disconnect. I interviewed a guy for my podcast, Patrick Lindqvist, who is the Chief Innovation Officer for the city of Helsingborg in Sweden. And he's come up with a beautifully elegant solution, which he's hired gap managers. Their job is to manage the gaps between the different departments and the different stakeholders. It's a really clever idea. So that's one answer to your question. I think the other piece is strong personal accountability. You need to hire people who keep their word. They only make promises they intend to keep. When they mess up, they admit it. So another really good way of breaking down those barriers is to have a failure log. You don't punish people for failing, you punish them for hiding it. During regular meetings, you bring out the failure log and then you discuss how you can prevent that from happening again. So it's about that iterative improvement. I think another thing that you can do is just massively improve communication. Profile people for their listening capability. There's actually a tool out there called Echo Listening that I recommend managers use in their recruitment process and also for assessing their people to understand how people listen and whether they are capable of it. Because I've never listened my way out of a sale. I've talked my way out of plenty.
Oh, yes. I've talked myself out of plenty too, and the less you say, usually the better, because everybody wants to speak, but no one wants to listen, and everybody wants to be heard. People want to be heard, and if you listen and you actually let them be heard, they're more likely to work with you because they feel like what they're saying is far more important than what you have to say. So if you keep blabbing, guess what? It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to spiral down, and guess what? They're not going to listen to you because they don't want to. Nobody wants to listen. So if you could be that listener, you're already a rare right there. Moving forward from there, though,
So
and thank you.
Sorry, that was a game that I was playing with you. The key is do not try and fill the silence with the sound of your own voice. Most people, Rob, just now, if you go back and you listen to that again, it was about 3 seconds. If you're quiet for 3 to 11 seconds after someone speaks, they will probably continue to talk and you will continue to learn. So one of the most important skills is learning to STFU, shut the fuck up.
Yep.
Now, the problem is that most people listen for the gap so that they can fill the sound with the silence with their own voice. Gong's research on 10 million calls is the average length of time a salesperson can stay quiet is 0.7 of a second. That has shrunk from 0.6 of a second 10 years ago when Miller Hyman did the search.
No way it's that low. I thought they would have been able to hold out for about 2 seconds.
No, 0.7 of a second.
How long did it take me?
You lasted about 3.
Okay, because that was I've been practicing on that myself actually. And 3 seconds was my goal. If you recommend longer, I could see why. Because the silence allows people to think.
Well, it also allows you to wait to the end of the sentence when the golden nugget normally comes. And if you're thinking about your next question or what you're going to say next, you're not paying attention. Attention is a currency. You pay attention. But the problem is that if you're not paying attention and you're thinking about what you say next, then all human beings are driven by 3 things. They all want to be heard, to feel felt, and to be understood. Now, if you don't listen well, you don't do that. And listening is a whole body experience. I interviewed Dr. Laura Janusik recently. And what was fascinating there was that listening is so integral to communication, but it's the one thing that no one really teaches. They pay lip service to it with this active listening shit. But it's got, that's not what it's about. You need to come to a conversation with a prospect or someone in your team with genuine curiosity.
Right. And what even is active listening anyway? It's a passive thing to do.
I dispute that. I think listening is incredibly tiring because to listen effectively requires 100% concentration. You have to be fully present. You're not thinking about what you're going to have for supper tonight, the row you had with your spouse this morning, or the row you're going to have with your kids tonight, your target or anything else. You have to be fully present. And this is where mindfulness really comes into its own. The problem is that most people operate from what we call the drama triangle. The drama triangle describes every messed up, dysfunctional relationship you can or will ever have. And you have the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. And ego thrives on drama. And people tend to swap those positions. Excuse me. And they feel hard done by. And so they move into the persecutor position. Or they complain and say, oh, I'm only trying to help. And they rescue, which is helping without boundaries or permission. You're mollycoddling or permissive. And that is typically because you're stuck in the past or worrying about the future. Now, if you're fully present, you operate typically from the winner's triangle. And instead of being a victim, you're vulnerable. And being vulnerable is the highest sign of courage.
That is so true. Yeah, that is absolutely so true. And like you're saying with listening, it is the most valuable thing. I could see how you can call it a currency too. Even in relationships, I mean, personal relationships, what is one of the best qualities that somebody could say about you when, let's say you're dating somebody, guy, girl, doesn't matter. He or she says he or she is such a good listener. And usually those are the strongest relationships, at least from what I've seen throughout my, I haven't been here that long. So from what I've seen, being a good listener is what holds everything together.
Say again?
Oh, being a good listener is what holds everything together. It's true.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're a funny guy though. Right.
So
Right.
let's just finish that model because it is really powerful. Being vulnerable, nurturing and empathic, and assertive instead of being a victim, persecutor, and rescuer. Now, so I'll give you a good example of this. I'm running late for a meeting, and if I'm operating from the drama triangle, it goes something like this. Rob, look, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to get to you, but I've been caught in traffic, and my sat-nav took me all the way around the houses. It's not my fault. Okay, that's the drama triangle version. The winner's triangle version goes, Rob, I am so sorry. It's entirely my fault. I misjudged the traffic. I left too late, and I'm running about 20 minutes late. I completely understand if you want me to tell me to turn around, go and boil my head, and I'll chalk this up to experience, and I hope you can forgive me.
Yeah.
Now,
I
that's
can
the
see that
grown-up
100%.
version. But most people don't do that. They operate from that drama triangle. It's excuses, it's blame, it's prejudice, it's judgment, it's whining, moaning, complaining. That's not attractive.
That's right. That's right. And my dad always taught me growing up, excuses are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So whenever I made him, that's what I would hear. And guess what? Didn't matter. But he's also a salesperson. So it made sense. That's one of the most useful pieces of advice I think I've ever had. And he also told me common sense is the least common commodity. So fucking have it.
Absolutely. Common sense is a myth. As a species, we're very arrogant. We think somehow that we are top of the food chain. Well, that
Right.
might be the case, but only 0.0000003% of us are utterly brilliant and have ever come up with anything original. The rest of us are ballast.
That's true. 100%. Yeah, ballast is right. So what is, just moving forward with the next, what's one of the things about sales that does not excite you? I've been excited to ask you this question, actually. So what disgusts you to the core and what does not excite you? And those things do not have to be related by any means.
Right. Okay. I think atrocious. Well, my wife just whispered admin. I'm atrocious at that, which is why I married someone who's very good at it. But what disgusts me is the way that particularly private equity and venture-backed businesses treat salespeople as if they are a commodity to be utilized and burnt out.
Disposable. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
The salespeople are the lifeblood of a company, and if people cannot see that, yeah, good luck. Fire your entire sales staff, see what happens. You have the best product in the world. You have the best technology, service, whatever you offer in the world. If you don't have anybody to sell it, guess what? It's not.
It's dust.
It's nothing.
So I think the thing that really disgusts me there is that the overassignment of quota, for example, is a really good indicator. You got to do 100 million in revenue, but they assign 150 million to the sales team. Now, the CFO, the CEO, and the investors are all clinking champagne glasses because they've done their number. Meanwhile, you're seeing burnout, you're seeing mental breakdowns, you're seeing high turnover, disengaged, disloyal staff who are then speaking to your customers. And then you wonder why your customer churn rate is so high and why your profit is low, because they're discounting like a $10 hooker at the end of the month. And that's disgusting. And the other thing that really pisses me off is the lack of training and investment in sales managers. Middle sales management is the most precarious role there is. Sandler did a study at the beginning of 2020, and we found that only 6% of managers are fit for purpose in sales. That means 94% are not. And so most managers, their route to management is they're a top performer in sales. The idiot manager gets fired. They get tapped on the shoulder. Rob, you're the manager now. Congratulations. And they do what was done to them. But they've got no idea how to manage. It's a completely different skill set. So what should happen And don't hire the top producer into management. They're rarely the best managers. The best managers are normally the ones with the highest account penetration. They're team players, they're strategic, they care about the customer. And make sure they have a minimum of 6, but preferably 12 to 18 months runway, learning how to do the job. If someone expresses an interest at interview in moving into management, then put them onto a pathway so that they are mentoring other salespeople. Have them coaching other salespeople. Have them running sales meetings. Help them learn how to forecast. Help them learn how to strategize and plan. Help them with account planning and how to coach that to other people. And that's a skill set that is completely different from being a top producer. Top producers are often very selfish. Managers need to derive enormous satisfaction from seeing other people achieve their potential and succeed. And that's sadly lacking, particularly in tech and particularly in VC and often in private equity-backed companies.
Right. And I mean, they say that those who do cannot teach, but that's not entirely true. It's those who do for themselves cannot teach. That's what I would like to amend that statement to.
I think that's very accurate.
Right. That's how it should be, as well as what you're saying, as far as how salespeople are pressed way too far. I mean, all their buttons have been pressed a lot of these companies, and I have personally seen salespeople snap, mental breakdown on the spot, snap, leave. It happens in the restaurant world too. On top of that, I mean, you'll see a server just break down because it's too much stress. There's too much stress put on them, and so on. Doesn't really matter what the job is, but when you're in a poisonous environment like that, where too much is expected of you, where reaching that number may be possible, but it shouldn't be a numbers game. It's something that is so personal, and something that the longevity of a deal usually will dictate how much money it's going to bring and how much they're going to spend. Helping that company grow by service-oriented strength. If you help them grow, they're going to spend more money with you, because guess what? You're one of their lifelines. The better that you help them, the better the experience, the better that they're going to grow, the more that they're going to pay you, more times than not. So I think we need to kind of fall away from pushing salespeople to the point of breaking,
I came across this beautiful quote, which is, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. That pretty much sums up what a manager should be doing. That's what salespeople should be doing for their customers. And the problem is that most don't really understand that. They're selfish and they're self-orientated. And what they tend to do is correct and convince. You shouldn't be doing it this way. You should be doing it our way. And what you should be doing is validating and then fascinating. And very few people really get that.
And there is no right and wrong way, especially when it comes to sales. Everybody has their unique selling style. There are things that should be done, because a process are things that should be done. You have to track. You want to make sure that your email tracker's on. You want to make sure that you're logging the information. Like, if you forget to put their email address in there, then maybe you can't get in touch with them. That's process. Making sure that the data is there is process.
Like a true millennial. I want their telephone number. Forget email. Email's the kiss of death.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I think email selling is actually extremely inefficient and ineffective. And you're sending out thousands of emails, just unwarranted solicitation, adding noise into their inbox. And it drives me nuts. I can't stand getting them myself.
Dan Kennedy said, the price of free marketing is all the people who will never do business with you. And there are companies that have pissed me off to the point where I will never do business. Even if they were a good option, I probably wouldn't do business because of their marketing. And this
I can also name a couple with the same thing. I won't do business with them straight up because of the way that they've been approaching me.
And the problem is that so much of marketing automation and sales enablement technology has been implemented in a way that has distanced and dehumanized us and distanced us from the customers. And I'm on a mission to humanize sales and marketing.
Yeah, so sales enablement technology is not dehumanizing technology, because then it would not qualify as sales enablement technology. It is not enabling sales. It's disabling them and taking the people out of it.
They're selling to a customer. I teach them that what they should be doing is selling to generate a lifetime customer, not to develop a transaction and hit their quota this month. I would rather they hit their quota a couple of months in a row. Miss their quota a couple of months in a row, but did a proper job establishing all the right reasons for them to be for the customer to buy from them, and they sell as partners. One of my projects this year is the development of a war room, a virtual war room, where we have vendor, partners, and customers working together as partners to co-develop the solution for the customer.
Absolutely. Creating that ecosystem is absolutely vital, and that's going to work. We need to help each other before we can help ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that is what needs to be done. Well, just like you need to help yourself before you can help others. That's more of a personal thing. It's you as an individual, but as you help others succeed, that is quite literally the point in business to business selling, management, operations. Success does not matter. Everybody needs to be helped before you can help yourself, because helping yourself and being selfish in the business world, the business to business world specifically, is never going to end well.
Well, there are a couple of points to build on here. Emerson's law of compensation says to get more, give more. Now, I've got a pal and a partner and a friend of mine, Zach Selch, who's been selling through partnerships. He's built over 1,000 partnerships in 130 countries over the last 30 years. And his motto is the only way out of my network is in a box. He's still dealing with people he was working with 30 years ago. Now, that is longevity. That's sustainability. And his competitors will refer to him because they know that he is better suited than they are to solve the customer's problem. And he does the same. Now,
that's how you know you're good right there.
Absolutely. And I believe fundamentally that the future of being successful in sales is, first of all, that you need to get good at partnerships. The second thing is you need to build a personal brand. It's no good if you're a Luddite and you don't use social media, you're not building a personal brand. Yes, you want to move from product seller to authority, but I think you have to go beyond that, and you have to go beyond hero to sage. Simon Bowen uses that model. It's a beautiful model. And people come to sages because they have wisdom. And what they're hoping is that they will be smarter as a result of doing business with that individual and that company. And it kind of ties their ego into it as well. But too often, the emphasis is on selfish self-interest, not on service and serving the customer. You have to put the customer front and center in everything that you do. Your business, your marketing, your sales, your operations needs to be built around them, because we are in business because of the customer, not in spite of them.
Right. Speaking of sage, I was going to actually write a description about you that said the sage of selling, except I decided not to do that. But I thought it was pretty catchy. It would be really cool. If you're cool with it, then I'm going to do it, because the word sage, I think, was so appropriate. Though, yeah, I didn't flow with it, I guess.
Well, I'm flattered and mildly embarrassed. I mean, there are much better people out there than me. But the reality is that I believe it's our job to serve customers. And the problem is that unless we are getting better ourselves every day, I mean, there hasn't been a day gone by since I was 23 where I haven't put between 1 and 6 hours in my own personal development. Anyone who says that they don't have time for study is basically settling and an at leaster or a loser in sales.
What does that even mean? You don't have time to build your own professional pull in the market. You can't teach yourself to do something. And people, I just made a post about this last night. James Buckley, which I'm sure you know him, James Sit with Sales Buckley. He made a post about, oh, this is how much you spend every year on X, Y, and Z, and it's just entertainment, alcohol, whatever. I had to reshare it. I usually don't reshare anything. It's because he had a really good point. It's about self-development and developing more professional skills. That is an investment that needs to be made. Most of the time, companies will absolutely not invest in you to do that. You shouldn't be, if that's what you're waiting for, guess what? You're waiting for a train that's never going to come, because guess what? They removed the tracks. And just do not wait for that. Develop your skills and make that investment, because it'll pay back much more than what you're going to pay in.
I've typically been charging individuals about 20 grand a year to come on my program. If I don't spend that much or more on developing myself, then I'm a hypocrite. And I've routinely been spending that, probably significantly more, if I'm being honest. But it pays back every single year. Now, the other aspect of this, I interviewed a fabulous sales lady called Alexine Mudawar. And she's only been in sales about 7 years, but she's gone from nowhere to absolutely skyrocket. And I can't wait to get that episode out, because it is absolutely a blueprint on how to be an A-player salesperson. And it picks at all the things that are wrong with the way SDRs and junior salespeople are treated. They're the leaders of the future. They're the entrepreneurs of the future. And just churning and burning is crazy. Not investing in them. Again, when you're hiring, you need to set really clear expectations up front in the interview process. You need to have a good pre-onboarding process, a good onboarding process. Then there needs to be training, and it's not product training. Product training can probably wait for 2 or 3 months, because if you're talking about product early on in any of the kind of businesses that I'm in, then chances are you increase the cost in the prospect's mind, reduce the probability of closing, and lengthen the sales cycle. So there needs to be training. There needs to be ongoing coaching, 3 to 3.5 hours per month per rep. You need to do ride-alongs with them. They need to be training other people, because you learn more by teaching. They need to have other people. So new blood coming in needs to be mentored and coached by junior salespeople, who are in turn mentored and coached by slightly more senior salespeople, all the way up the chain. And you need to listen to what they have to say, because they will tell you what the customers want. Because if you've trained them right, then they will be getting that unfiltered, unbiased, honest feedback from customers, and that can help you develop your product.
Right, and that's my company hires based off of one of the major determining factors. Are you coachable? Coachability. If you're too stuck in your way, guess what? You could have had a salesperson who has had an incredible career. They've been in sales for 18, 20 years, whatever. And you're looking to hire this person because they're so talented. They worked in a separate space before, maybe in management services, but now you're trying to hire them to a tech company. They think they know everything is the problem. The know-it-all people are very much a problem, because when they come into a new experience with a different sales cycle, with a different sales process, with different types of clients, if they're not willing to be able to be taught what's happening within the company, they're wearing these things that are probably the thing that holds people back the most is golden handcuffs. That's what they're doing.
I'm blinded.
Just because they're a superstar when it comes to selling, guess what? You're in a new experience. You no longer are, but you think you are, even if it's otherwise.
Well, even veterans need a 120-day onboarding process. And in the onboarding process, what you're doing is you're helping them get acculturated. And it needs to cover, what do they need to know? By when do they need to know it? Where can they find the resources that they need to learn it? How will it be measured? By when are they going to need to understand it? To what standard will they be expected to reach at each milestone? And what are the red flags? And they need to know that along the way, during that 4-month probation period, when they are putting you as an employer and you as a hiring manager on probation, because that's what happens. The first 120 days is when a new hire decides, is this the job I was sold? Is my boss an ass? Do I like the people I'm working with? Was I better off somewhere else? Do I like the customers? That's what they're thinking. And don't fool yourself. And so even veterans, especially veterans, need to go through that onboarding process. And if you don't do that, bluntly, you're an idiot. A plain, simple idiot.
And how would you handle the objections from these people? Someone wearing golden handcuffs. How would you handle the objections in the sense of,
I wouldn't hide
would you tell them straight up? I mean, if you did by happenstance, this is for people who have done this. They're having this problem right now.
Okay, you can never blame someone for doing something to you never said they couldn't do. That's a rule. Now, if you haven't introduced this in the recruitment process, in the onboarding process, on day one, when you're acculturating them, all the way throughout, that coaching and training and onboarding are mandatory, non-negotiable, then they can ship out. As far as I'm concerned, that would be a red flag, and they would never make it through the interview process.
Right. And how would you be able to see underneath the covers, I guess you could say, of what someone like that would look like who's trying to cover that up?
Well, first of all, I would look for examples of where they have taken coaching recently. And I would want multiple examples because I want a habit of being coached. So Rob, talk me through 6 ways that you've been coached in the last 6 months.
Let's see.
Flip it, flap it, flop it, whatever. Yeah.
Well, okay. Yeah, sure. It would be in management. It would.
Sorry, go on.
Excuse me. Oh, it'd be in management. It would be in mindset. It would be in personal growth. It would be in emotional selling, emotional response, as well as empathy. So emotional selling, emotional response, but then also being more empathetic with people. And I guess you could say sympathetic to understand people more so. So learning the psychology behind management and other things like that. That's the main ticket.
So talk me through a specific example.
Positive mindset is one of the largest things that can possibly make whatever you're thinking into reality. So it would be thinking into results.
Okay, so, but in terms of how you were coached, talk me through how you were coached around positive mindset.
It was through, well, it is through, I'm still going through coaching, of course. It is through a very, I guess you could say hardcore program where you need to be doing it. That's the thing. And it's said to you, it's your choice, but you need to do it. But it's through different group meetings.
Stop. Specifics. I want to hear the specifics. Give me one example of something they coached you around positive mindset.
Being able to meditate while you're thinking about something that may be one of your paradigms in order to make it so you can make that change. That's the idea. So you can make changes based off of what you believe, where you know it's something that it's not relevant. It's only relevant because you're thinking it. And to make that a reality by being able to meditate and training your subconscious with auto-suggestion to understand that, yes, this is just what I'm thinking. This is just what I'm feeling. It has nothing to do with my reality, and then making it your reality.
So give me an example of how you've applied that.
Every single night, meditate and tell myself exactly what I need to do in order to improve myself. And I focus on small things at one time. And until that becomes a reality, I keep working on it. After it becomes a reality, I switch to another thing that I need to improve on.
Okay. So what I would typically do is I'd look for the story. Then I would, so for example, if I'm looking at a prospecting habit, yeah, then I would ask for half a dozen examples of how they've generated new business from scratch, self-generated. And then I would ask them to tell me that story backwards. Okay, so I'd pick one of them, because if they've actually lived it, they run the movie in their head backwards, and there's a steady flow.
I was about to say, I could way more easily tell you that backwards, probably.
Okay, but if they haven't done it, then it sets up cognitive dissonance, because they have to go to the beginning and then come back to the end, and then go to the beginning and come back to the end, and go to the beginning and come back to the end. And that sets up a red flag for me. So then I can challenge it. I don't say you're lying, but I'll say, really, I'm uncomfortable about this, or go into a bit more detail about that, because you can find out a lot, because habits are predictors of success. Historical results are not.
Right.
Your skills, most of those can be learned, but attitudes, beliefs, and values in particular, are things that you do when no one's looking. Cognitive abilities, as opposed to experience. In all honesty, I've worked in so many different sectors of the market. You can throw me on 5 or 6 meetings, and I'll have 80% of the terminology that I need, whether it's a technical or, everything is a conceptual sell. And the only thing that any of us ever sell is change.
Right.
It's changing from our current, our present, to our better future. And the problem is that most people get so fixated on stuff that doesn't really matter, and they
Like
get
features or what the product does.
and so they get stuck on that. And when they're telling me these stories of their victories, losses is another one. I want to know that someone can demonstrate vulnerability. So, Rob, talk to me about the last 6 losses that you've had in the last 6 months.
Well, we wouldn't have time for the last 6, but
Yeah,
one of them.
but that's the question, because I
Oh
want
yeah.
that they're ready to talk about that. Another great question, which filters out the ones who are brittle and not coachable, is Rob. Why aren't you a better salesperson?
You know what I
Fabulous.
like telling people? I don't have a background in sales, but guess what? I was a bartender for years, so I can sell. It's not about having a sales background. That's another fallacy too. You don't need a sales background to sell. You need to be good with people and relationship building.
Well, you also need to give a damn,
That's right.
and you need to understand the acronym STFU.
Yep.
Yep,
Shut the fuck up.
that's the one. You got to
Exactly.
you listen your way into a sale. You talk your way out of them. And all of these things come out in interview. If you understand, and interviews should be an uncomfortable experience for the salesperson, because the person they're going to become is the one they become under pressure. So tell them up front, I'm going to put you under pressure. Are you okay with that? Now you got permission, and now you can put them under pressure. Because I don't want to see someone who suddenly runs their mouth under pressure or freezes under pressure. My favorite opener to an interview is, Rob, I've really been looking forward to meeting you. Over to you. If you haven't got a plan, then you better be able to think really well on your feet, and you have to have a structure on how you sell to me. Because I don't want to interview a salesperson where they're passively answering my questions. That's a 3-minute interview.
Right. I can't stand that either. Tell me about your experience. Well, number one, I've already read the resume. Of course, I know what their experiences are, unless they're lying about them. Once
Yeah.
they tell me about their experiences, I want to see, okay, how do you define your experiences? Not what you wrote on that paper that you had help from some sort of somebody, or, even your mom. In a lot of cases, that's what people do. Oh, how should I do my resume, mom? That type of thing. I've seen 40-year-olds do that, but that's besides the point. Is that I want to know from their experience, from their point of view, what did those experiences mean to you? And if they aren't given purpose and they just list off the stuff that they did there, they weren't passionate about it, and the experience didn't mean anything to them. Is that really who you want to hire?
Resumes, CVs are much like forecasts. They're a work of fiction, by and large. They're a marketing document. Going for a job is just another sale.
Yeah, selling yourself.
Most people treat it, like it's something hallowed. It's not. You've got to establish, as a seller, you're a personal services corporation selling your expertise for money. Okay, and you're an expert in helping people solve their problems by finding ways to uncover the root cause of that problem and seeing if there's a fit with whatever proposition you're offering. And most people actually are wage slaves. Their salary, they're worried about their basic salary. I don't care what my basic salary is. I haven't had a basic salary for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. And what I want is to know that the commission plan is good.
There are so many people I've interviewed where they're just, they're SDRs who want a 6-figure salary. What are you even talking about? That is ridiculous. The reason why is because if the revenue structure, when it comes to commissions, when it comes to bonuses, is really good, if you're actually a good salesperson, your salary is absolutely not even relevant. It's peanuts compared to what your commission can be. And if you're worried about the salary, you're probably worried about your own ability to sell.
A client of mine came to me about 5-6 years ago, helped him. He was in recruitment, helped him train his team, and they were doing brilliantly, but he felt that there was nowhere really for him to go. And so he came to me about 10 months ago for help to try and get a job out of recruitment and into technology sales. And he's applied all the stuff that we've worked on. And in 8 months, he's already 200% of target. He took £100,000 drop in income in the first year in order to make this career transition. Now, in all honesty, he's not only 200% ahead of target, but they didn't expect him to generate 1 cent until the 14th month. Now, this is enterprise sales, and he's 200% a quota. And he'll probably leave the year 300 grand. So they've doubled his income by really diligent application of planning, really focused prioritization, understanding his target market, developing the stories, making sure he prospected, and he's prospecting every day, even though he's 200% a quota, he still prospects every day. Never lets up, because he understands the principle that you prospect for choice. What you don't do today, you'll pay for tomorrow. And just because you're ahead doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas. You just keep going. It's unrelenting.
It's either you stay ahead and you keep moving forward, or you start to die. That's it.
If you're green, you grow. You're ripe, you rot.
That's right. That's right. There is no maintaining or being comfortable. And I can't stand how many people out there just absolutely think that I'm comfortable. Well, I don't want to move forward. I'm not trying to do anything different, or I'm not trying to, I'm happy where I'm at. If you're happy where you're at, that's when you start going downhill. There is no such thing as happy where you're at. You need to find the beauty of being slightly uncomfortable at all times, if not very, right? Absolutely. Just as you were saying.
You need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You need to constantly be developing. You should never be satisfied with your performance. You should be pre-call planning, rehearsing, and for every minute you're in front of the prospect, 3 minutes of rehearsal. Then you execute the plan, and the plan never survives contact with the enemy. Then you come out and you do a written post-call debrief, and then you do a verbal post-call debrief within 2 hours. And then you use that to drive your pre-call plan by learning where the gaps are, what other questions you need to ask, and you're constantly improving. And every day you should take away 3 lessons. If you leave the day without 3 good lessons, you've wasted that day.
100%, 100%. And as you were saying before, with the whole salary is not relevant and everything like that, I do want to tell people, even just people who own businesses, people who are investors, people who are anything, the only thing that holds true value is assets. Liquid money is worthless. So assets are worth something, and they represent something. Liquid money can come and it can go. You can live paycheck to paycheck. You can spend as much as you want. You can save as much as you want, but saving money is actually not saving money. Due to inflation, you're actually losing money. A savings account's ridiculous. So that is something that people need to keep in mind. If you need to take risk to get reward, and if you are starting a company, or let's say you are switching your job to a startup, and they are offering you equity, and you know and believe that that product is going to become something, that equity that they offer you with that extremely low pay is the most valuable thing that that startup could possibly have given you. The most valuable thing. And that's also what investors know. The equity is worth something. That's why they hand them millions of dollars for a little bit of equity. That's exactly what they want.
Again, you need to be savvy, and you need to have a great leadership team and great management. An average product with great leadership and management can grow really fast. But you've got to be really careful, because the way many investors stiff the people who are early in a business is they dilute the shares, or they fire people before they're allowed to vest. There's a whole raft of stuff. So be really careful. My view is, equity's nice, but a great comp plan. If you're a salesperson, really focus on the great comp plan, and then invest your money wisely. And this is one of the other things that really pisses me off, which is you've got these young salespeople who are up and coming. Scott Leese is brilliant on this. He actually has training in his team on teaching people how to manage and handle their money and make investments. And that, I think, is a really brilliant innovation.
Absolutely. I love Scott Leese. I've done a live thing with him before. It was incredible. He has so much wisdom.
Absolutely. What you keep matters more than what you make. And the worst bit of advice I was given was in my first sales job by my trainer, which is always spend more than you earn. keeps you hungry. That was absolutely awful advice. Make sure you save, invest. I'm 53 now, and it took a long time to recover from that really bad advice early on in my career.
Oh yeah.
I wish I'd never heard it.
Oh, when I was saying savings accounts are ridiculous, you should always have a nice cushion. What I would say is that you may as well make your money make you money. So putting it into investments, putting it into stocks and bonds, that is the smartest way because you want it to work for you. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You want the money to work. Einstein said it best. People who understand compound interest earn it. People who don't pay it.
Yeah, truth. Yeah, that's right. So we're almost out of time here, but what I would like to do is ask you one of the questions that I've really been asking you because of the last time that we spoke is how do you respond and what does it mean when a client says, "Let me think about it"?
Well, first of all, what it tells me is you did a really bad job right at the beginning of the conversation. If you'd done your job right, what you would say to them is, Rob, look, I don't know where this is going to go, but can we agree this? By the end of this conversation, one of two outcomes. Either we agree to continue the conversation and we agree a clear next step, and we diarize what's going to happen next, identify who besides the two of us needs to be involved, and agree what outcome we want from that next step. Or we part as friends and we say no. What I don't want to have happen is at the end of it, you say to me, I need to think about it. Because we both know that I need to think about it is a polite way of saying no, but you don't want to upset me. Now, if you've done that at the beginning and you've got that agreement, then you can remind them of it. Because if they do say, well, look, I need to think about it, you say, I'm so sorry. I sense that I owe you an apology. Or what for? Well, you remember right at the beginning, we agreed that we would either move forward or we would part friends, but we wouldn't do a think it over. And now you've given me a think it over. So I must have done something to upset you or give you cause for doubt. Do you mind telling me what that was? Because I want to flush out the real objection. What I should have done in the qualification process also is establish where they are in their decision-making process. Are they gathering information? Are they defining the specification? Because both of those are free consulting. Or are they at the point where they're ready to select a partner to help them solve their problem? Now, a lot of this is down to salespeople's weakness and fear of conflict. I don't mind conflict. I'm not a big fan, but I don't mind it. And I've learned over the last 35 years of selling that actually conflict's not a bad thing as long as it's constructive. So I don't mind inviting them to say no. So when someone says to me, look, I need to think about it, I might say, Rob, tell me this. Are you trying to spare my feelings? Do you really want to not take this any further? Because I'd much rather you told me no thanks. Okay?
Right.
Now, they'll either tell me, well, there are things that I need to think about, and then I want to find out what and why and how long and what's going to happen next so I can contract for a next step. And sometimes, I mean, I've done this a couple of times, with marked success, which is, well, how long do you need to think about it? Well, we need to talk about it amongst ourselves. Do you mind if I go and sit outside on a step and I'll come back in 20 minutes? And I'll come back in 20 minutes, they give me a decision. Yeah, I don't mind doing that. What I do mind, and this is something bad salespeople, inexperienced salespeople, and awful managers allow salespeople to do, is they leave without agreeing a clear future next step. Every sales interaction should end on one of four outcomes. Yes, with an order. No, with a clear future, contracted for, mutually agreed next step, which is clear, specific, and certain in its terms. A no with a lesson or a no with a referral. Now, most salespeople say, thanks very much. Shall I send you a proposal? And then they go away and then they wonder why they're being ghosted because they're now.
Oh my God, I can't stand that. Oh, thank you very much. Then they send the agreement, send a proposal, send whatever it is, or an invoice, for like a quote invoice. Cannot stand it. If I didn't say yes, why the hell are you sending me that content? Why?
Because a lot of salespeople think that by keeping their most salespeople's pipelines either look like a stick because there's nothing in it, or more often than not, what they look like is an old pair of grey baggy granny knickers. They're wide at the top, they're wide in the middle, and they're baggy and bulging at the bottom. Okay.
You gave me a perfect image of that, like without even you explaining.
Now, what they should look like is a thong. They need to be wide at the top and narrow at the bottom.
That's why it's called a funnel.
That's
literally
why it's a funnel. And the problem is that people don't understand that the 4 most important metrics, I believe, for a new business, well, any salesperson. Number 1, daily unique effective conversations. It's not about the volume of dials or the number of calls. It's the number of times you've actually spoken to a decision maker who's in your target market, is likely to have a problem that you can fix. And you'll get past the gatekeeper and you have a contract with them that at the end of the conversation, 1 or 2 things will happen. Either they'll hang up and you'll part friends, or they'll book a date in the diary for you to meet. Okay. The second thing is the velocity with which opportunities are moved through the pipeline. Because what you don't want is to get constipated and it to look like Dolly Parton or Kim Kardashian, which on them looks fine, but for a pipeline, you don't want it bulging like that. The third is the volume of opportunities moving from qualified opportunity to closable. And my rule of thumb is 3 to 5 times more at the qualified moving to closable stage than you need to hit your quota. And the fourth is the conversion rate of your first qualified meeting to second qualified meeting. You know, on average, in our profession, and I use that term loosely, 7 out of 8 first meetings do not result in a second meeting. What a waste. Now that tells me either your lead gen and pre-qual is crap, or you're doing a terrible job, or you're failing a terrible job of qualifying in the sale, or you're failing to agree a next step. Now, if any of those things are happening, then it allows me as the manager to identify where the problem is so I can coach you out of it.
Right. And that's literally what we do. Like my business, White Rabbit Intel, what we do is that we discover what those issues are and show you who you need to prospect and then automate that whole thing. Yeah, you know, instead of distributing VP of sales, no way to be able to tell their salespeople they get a list of 10,000 prospects. No one could look at all of that content. They just simply cannot. It's too much data to be able to figure that out. So why not have something do it for you? I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. It's just the point is computers are good at crunching numbers. That's what they're for. They're good at crunching data. So why do we as people keep trying to crunch the data? It just doesn't make sense. We have stuff for that. Let's use it.
I mean, if you're dumb enough to do it the old way, then start from Z and phone Zelda Zalotowicz, who will probably take a heavy breathing call and welcome it. Because everyone else is calling from A to Z.
Right. Z to A, baby. But or just even random, right? But yeah, that's about it for our time. But I do want to say thank you. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Marcus Cauchi, the sage of selling. I want to call you that now, by the way.
Thank you.
Of course. That's a legendary name, man. For sure. So thank you so much for your time. This is Rob Turley with the episode Selling the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of the Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. Thank you so much for your time and hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Down the Rabbit Hole podcast for new episodes weekly on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and YouTube. If you'd like to apply to be featured on the podcast or recommend a featured guest, please feel free to email us at theteam@whiterabbitintel.com. Download, comment, and share with your friends, family, and colleagues, or mention us on social media by tagging yours truly, Rob Turley, or tagging White Rabbit Intel. And use our hashtags, hashtag DTRH podcast and hashtag follow the White Rabbit, so we can feature the top shared posts on our social media.